Hi, my name is Frank Rendon, and I am the operations coordinator for Lubbock Moonlight Musicals. I am joined today by the amazing Casey Joyner, who is the assistant professor of musical theater at Texas Tech University. And she is with me today to discuss our upcoming season, Finding Family, for summer of 2021 with Lubbock Moonlight Musicals. We're making this video so that you at home can stay informed of what these shows are about, the characters that are in them, their plot lines, things that are going on, so that you can better prepare yourself for the auditions coming up. Ms. Joyner, how are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to talk about all of these shows.
The Finding Family season. So we had this idea that in the midst of this great pandemic, in the midst of all that is happening in our world, the things that we really kind of stick to here at Moonlight Musicals is the idea of family. We always talk about being in a Moonlight production as being a part of a family and having family-friendly entertainment. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for us for our kind of first season back after having to go away for this pandemic was to title our season Finding Family. And we picked these specific shows that have to do with just that, finding family. And so our very first show of the summer is The Sound of Music. So I have a short summary about The Sound of Music. The final collaboration between Rodgers and Hammerstein was destined to become the world's most beloved musical, featuring a trove of cherished songs including Climb Every Mountain, My Favorite Things, Do Re Mi, 16 Going on 17, and the title number The Sound of Music won the hearts of audiences worldwide, earning 5 Tony Awards and 5 Oscars. The inspirational story, based on the memoir of Maria Augusta Trapp, follows an ambulant postulate who serves as governess to the 7 children of the imperious Captain von Trapp, bringing music and joy to the household. But as the forces of Nazism take hold of Austria, Maria and the entire von Trapp family must make a moral decision. So in this, we kind of have the story of this young nun, Maria von Trapp, and her journey through kind of finding her place and her family, or who will ultimately become her family. The cast size is 23 plus. So where we're talking about 23 just kind of named characters and roles within them. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of these kind of leading bigger characters in the show?
Absolutely. The great thing about Sound of Music for me is how the script makes use of children. So often children are sort of a decorative addition to the musical theater stage, but in Sound of Music, they are the heart of the musical theater stage. And there are several moments where every child gets their time. It's not just Liesel and Rolf doing 16 Going on 17. Brigitte, they all get their moments, especially at the end of the party scene. So with a character like Maria, I mean, how do you solve a problem like Maria? The answer is that you give her 3 or 4 of the biggest solos in musical theater history. What I like about Maria is that she isn't just a typical soprano, and Rodgers and Hammerstein make use of very similar tropes throughout their history, but Maria is very interesting in that she never loses her childlike interest. She never loses her joy. She's always effusive, whether she's as a nun or as a mother or as a caretaker. And she sings these beautiful, light soprano, I almost want to call them arias, because they have such a melodic quality to them. They're almost classical. And that brings me to the abbess. Mother Abbess sings some huge soprano lines. Climb Every Mountain is one of the most challenging songs in the lexicon. And it kind of brings up this word, legit. People use this word talking about legit singing in musical theater, and it means classical singing. But I don't like the term because it stands for legitimate. They used to use it to say that, well, these people do kind of light singing, and then there's one person who has to do legitimate singing. All singing is legitimate.
Yes.
So the Mother Abbess takes these huge soprano lines. It takes a woman of a certain age and puts her in a starring role, which I love. It's not just Gypsy anymore. Mother Abbess takes the front. And then I also love Captain Von Trapp. Now, Rodgers and Hammerstein did something really important for musical theater where all of their leading men are baritones. And as a tenor yourself, you know that tenors are the star in a lot of shows. But in the Golden Age, baritones take the front seat, and I love that. Captain Von Trapp is austere, cold, aloof, but then he makes this transition, and he finds himself wanting to parallel Maria's energy. I love that about him. He's very erudite until he's not, until he finds joy in the children. The children are the catalyst for every major decision in the show. I love that. There's a character now, Elsa, who is not in, she doesn't have a singing role or a front seat role in the movie, but she has a kind of a larger role in the stage production. They sing this great song, she and Captain Von Trapp and Max, not going to stop it, no, we're not going to stop it, about how the world is going to go round and political things are going to take place regardless. That is such an important song because it's peppy and it's upbeat. And they all walk in a circle and they talk about how you can't stop the political machinations of the world. But then in the end, Captain Von Trapp takes this hard line against Nazism, against prejudice. And he says, my family will take the same line, and they sneak across the border to Switzerland. Rolf is really the tragedy of the show. He's a young man. He's swept up in what the entire nation, the entire international community was swept up in, this sort of like mindless, mob-like prejudice. And he goes from being in love with Liesel to being a member of the Third Reich. It's so tragic, but he's an interesting character to play. He has this one song, 16 Going on 17 with Liesel, and they're both so hopeful for the future and so, coquettish and excited about their romance. But then when Rolf comes back later, his joy is taken. And so the show says to the audience, when you choose the path of acceptance, love, positivity, family, you are joyful, you're colorful, like the dresses that Maria makes out of the shades, you're complete, you're whole, but when you take the darker path, the prejudicial path, you're like Rolf. You lose all your joy. The joy of 16 going on 17, he's much older than a 17 going on 18-year-old man should be at the end of the show. It's quite a journey as an actor to make. So that's what I would say about those characters.
Fantastic. You talk a lot about the children. So for you guys watching at home, understand, we have children ages, 5-ish to 16, 17, basically in the characters, but can be played by kids as, young as, 4 or 5,
Absolutely.
as old as 17, 18, 19.
They don't even specify Gretel's age. We just know
Exactly.
that Marta is 7 and she's right above her, and then Gretel is the youngest,
The
they
youngest,
say.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for kids to be kind of in the forefront, in the main stage of a show like this. And of course, it's appropriate for all ages. So be sure to send this message to all of your family and friends to come check out this show, The Sound of Music. So we will now take a little journey to... Oh, wow. Okay, so now this kind of feels a little more like home here in Lubbock. This is actually the setting to our second musical, which is actually talking about children. This is an all-children's production. This is from the Music Theater International's Junior Collection. This show is entitled Honk Jr., adapted for young performers with a score by George Stiles and Anthony Drew. Honk Jr. is a heartwarming celebration of being different that is sure to delight audiences of all ages with its sparkling wit, unique charm, and memorable score. Witty and hilarious, but also deeply moving, Honk Jr. will treat your audiences to equal amounts of laughter and tears. Ugly, so the main character of the show, Ugly, looks quite a bit different from his darling duckling brothers and sisters. The other animals on the farm are quick to notice and point this out. despite his mother's protective flapping. Feeling rather foul about himself, the little fowl finds himself on an adventure of self-discovery, all the while unknowingly outwitting a very hungry cat. Along the way, Ugly meets a whole flock of unique characters and finds out being different is not a bad thing to be. So, I have to admit, I know this show relatively well. I had the opportunity to music direct a production of this junior collection, of this junior version of Honk Jr. with Hub Performing Arts, with Paula Chanda. Hi, Paula. And what an amazing, amazing show this is. And we're talking about opportunity for so many young kids to be a part of an amazing production that we feature in our season. It's in the limelight. It's up there with all of the other shows that we will be producing this season, and just as important. Talking a little bit about these characters, as stated, Ugly, being the main character of the show, is kind of ridiculed from his hatching as looking different from brothers and sisters. And Mom, who is so protective and such a wonderful character in this, just full of life and love, and they have a very amazing relationship, the mother and father, Drake the father, and Ida the mother. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, am I allowed to spoil it? Am I allowed to say what Ugly's deal is? Or should I keep it?
Sure.
So Ugly is actually a cygnet. He's a baby swan, and his egg was dropped into a duck's nest by accident. So when he's born, naturally he looks a little different. Baby ducklings and baby swans look a little different. Swans are little fluffy boys. He feels super othered, and his mom does everything she can to shelter him, to help him find friends, but she becomes wary because the bullying is so stringent that she wants to protect him, keep him close. Drake is very frustrated by Ugly's position and by the fact that he doesn't get along with the other kids. And he and Ida have kind of an interesting marriage. I mean, going into the marriage here in this children's show, but they have sort of an interesting marriage in that they're learning from each other on the go. And I think that says a lot about parenting, because you can read all the books in the world, but then when you have the baby in the bassinet, you're like, oh my God, what do we do? Parents are learning on the go, and I think that they deserve forgiveness and breadth on stage, because stage is a reflection of life, and that's what Honk Jr. kind of gives. And funny enough, Honk, the original Honk that was on the West End in 1999, that was, I believe, adults acting as kids.
Yes.
And I've seen Honk, kind of like Charlie Brown, kind of like Putnam County Spelling Bee. Adults being kids is still one of my favorite tropes.
Yes.
But I would much rather see Honk Jr. And it's the one that's really become popular in the Canada, US, and the UK. Is Honk Jr. because people like to see kids teach them a lesson. And that's what Honk is about. Kids teaching a lesson of physical and aesthetic acceptance in a world where, honestly, don't we all just fight so hard for that? But in Honk, it's about the forces of good and evil meeting over aesthetic acceptance. The cat. What a
amazing character.
Great part. Love the cat. Best villain since Judas and Godspell. so feline and
that's right.
I love the cat. Because in a way, he or she can be played by either, is a typical villain, always trying to ensnare, Wolf, Red Riding Hood, always trying to break away, wants to chompy on a little bit of Signet. But it seems almost like Ugly's not even really interested. He just wants an ear. He's like, what do you think of blah, blah? And the cat's like, I don't know. I like that. Ugly's learning about himself, talking to somebody who wants to devour him. That's very funny to me.
Yes. Yeah. And Ugly finds him in that situation over and over and over again.
Constantly.
It's amazing. It's amazing. This most genuine character of Ugly, who's just so naive and just lovable from the get-go.
Yes.
And just finds himself in these really intense almost situations where there's a lot of tension between those two characters, but ultimately, all ends well for our
we feel sorry
ugly
for the
friend.
cat. He or she is the real loser.
Yeah.
in Honk Jr.
So in the plot of Honk Jr., Ugly kind of is lured out of the farm area, that their kind of nesting area, by the cat to go frolic and play, obviously with ulterior motives in mind for the cat. But in doing so, Ugly loses his sense of way home. And it kind of forces him on this journey of trying to find his way and running into all sorts of amazing, cool characters along the way. The Bullfrog is one of my favorite characters, and probably my favorite song in the show. But the show is just riddled with all these amazing and quaint characters that are fun to play for any kid. A kid can just dive in to parts like these and just have a field day with all of this. So this is definitely a show your kids are not going to want to miss, and you're not going to want to miss either, because, again, this is enjoyable for the whole family. Just because it is a junior production, just because it is a kid show, doesn't mean that everyone shouldn't come and see this amazing production.
Absolutely. The junior production is, if nothing else, even more profound.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we now find a place that maybe you might be a little more familiar with.
I lived in Washington Heights when I lived in New York, and I lived in several neighborhoods. Nothing compares. Truly, nothing compares to Washington Heights.
So Washington Heights, a borough of Manhattan in New York, is the setting of the final show for our summer season, In the Heights. In the Heights tells the universal story of a vibrant community in New York's Washington Heights neighborhood, a place where the coffee on the corner bodega is light and sweet, and the windows are always open, and the breeze carries the rhythm of 3 generations of music. It's a community on the brink of change, full of hopes, dreams, and pressures, where the biggest struggles can be deciding which traditions to take with you and which ones you leave behind. In the Heights celebrates, uplifts, and amplifies a Latinx community in New York City. To honor the author's vision and to clearly, appropriately tell the story, the role should be cast accordingly, according to the licensing company, according to the writer, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Company members must match the character definitions as written in the script. And we'll kind of go into a little bit of detail on that with you, Casey. You want to talk a little bit about In the Heights?
I would love to. I love In the Heights. In the Heights was one of my first musical theater loves, because you have the Sondheim, the Rodgers and Hammerstein, the Schoenberg, the stuff that brought me to musical theater. And when I saw In the Heights, I was like, wow, we're really moving forward. This genre is going somewhere. It was, to me, at my age, was the first sign of forward motion in a music that I thought of as not antiquated, but traditional. In the Heights breaks all the boundaries. It broke the boundaries before Hamilton broke the boundaries again.
That's right.
Same guy breaks the boundaries within a decade. Rude, except incredible. I would say that it's hard to pick a favorite character for me, but here's just the general breakdown. So you have Usnavi. Usnavi runs the bodega, and the bodega is the heart of any couple of blocks in Washington Heights and in most part of Manhattan. I still remember my bodega. I remember every aisle. I remember the names of everyone who worked behind the counter. The bodega was the heart, man. And then you have Benny. Benny runs the dispatch, getting cars out to certain areas, making sure everybody knows what the traffic situation is. He does a great spoken word rap style piece at the beginning of In the Heights where he tells you what the traffic conditions are around Manhattan. Honestly, starting off so strong, one of my favorite pieces in the show. Then you have poor Nina. Nina. Like, I can just hear all the sad voices singing her name.
Breaks your heart.
I hate it for her. Nina, she is the one who got out. I think this is something that's not just specific to Washington Heights or Manhattan or New York. It's something specific to everybody's hometown.
Yes.
She is the one who got out of the Heights. She got into Stanford, huge deal by any respect. But when she got there, she had to work so many jobs to keep herself in school that her schoolwork suffered. We've all been there. And she dropped out. So now she's kind of like, in her words, crawling back home and trying to decide how to tell her overachieving parents, the proud members of her neighborhood and her chosen family, that she's had to leave school. And she sings Breathe, probably the most famous song from In the Heights. It's awful. The heartbreaking, the beats in that song going from I'm going to be just fine to how am I going to disappoint all these people to everything's fine. I'm going to find a way to wrap up this news in a way that people are still proud of me. And then this awful 3/4 chorus where she just belts to the high heavens about how they're looking to me to succeed. Can you imagine shouldering that kind of burden as a woman her age? Awful. So Nina comes crawling home, and she immediately is trying to avoid her mother and father at the same time, wanting to go see them. Everyone in the neighborhood seeks counsel from Abuela. Abuela is the heart of this musical. Now, she's no one's actual grandmother. That's the funny part about it, is that, for a long time I thought she was Usnavi's actual grandmother. When Usnavi's parents died, she just started taking care of him because she's awesome.
Yes.
Abuela is, everyone seeks her out for information, for stories. She has been trying to get back home since she emigrated to the U.S. in the 50s. She worked so long and hard to make sure that her mother could go back home, but her mother died in the U.S. before they could go. So 2 major events take place in the Heights. The first is that they find out Usnavi's bodega has sold a lottery ticket, $96,000. A winning lottery ticket for $96,000. And they sing this totally breakdown, blow the house down piece, $96,000. You can see it at the Tonys. Unbelievable, where they all talk about what they do with this money. And then there's a power outage. Now, this happens in New York and in LA and larger cities during the summer.
Of course.
We think that we know what hot is, but I'll tell y'all right now, I have never been as hot as I was in New York waiting for the subway. I've never felt that kind of pain, okay? That's hot. At least here I can walk into the air conditioning. In New York, that's a maybe. And also, the tepid breeze of the train passing me, I was like, thank you. There is no hot like that hot. The power goes out because everyone's using their air conditioner. The electricity is overboard. The power goes out, and they're all trying to figure out who has a $96,000 lottery ticket. It's Abuela, okay? So the best... There's so many amazing pieces, I barely even know where to start. You have Nina. Now she belts. Then you have Vanessa. She super belts. Vanessa works in the hair in the hair shop. Okay. The women in the hair shop, I think that's some of the best music.
It is the funniest.
Oh, no me diga.
Oh, my gosh.
I live for that. If he keeps it clean. There's just no end to how
It's
funny.
so reminiscent of, the households I was in growing up. Immediately I just felt at home listening to them speak and listening to the way that they communicated with everyone around them. It was amazing.
The way that Miranda captures the cadence of that accent in English, but in a musical context, it's nothing short of genius.
Yes.
And he developed this musical in a basement below the play shop. For anyone who's been in New York, they were like, you can use the basement. And he just got together all these banging actors and took them to the basement and was like, I have this idea. No me diga is genius.
Yes.
And then you have Vanessa who works there. All the guys are in love with Vanessa, and she belts so high it probably burst through a cloud somewhere in heaven about how she is going to take the elevated train, that's the subway that runs on an elevated track in the Heights, and she's going to get out. Her mom is an alcoholic. She's working day and night to support them both. She wants to move downtown, somewhere nice. So Usnavi raps more than he sings. He sings a little, but he raps more than he sings. Takes a sensitive, spoken word conscious actor who understands the importance of every syllable, every word, the meaning of every syllable, every word, and has a rhythm down to the soles of his feet. Nina has to be able to sing with just emotion dripping off the chords. It has to hurt because the song already hurts just on the page.
Absolutely.
But when she sings, it has to hurt you double. Vanessa has to skrelt. And that's how I want it. I want to hear the skrelt because she wants to get out more than she wants to do anything else in the world.
Yeah.
And when you want to do something more than you want to do something else in the world, don't you scream, Don't you just up to the sky? And then Benny is the only one in the show who doesn't speak Spanish, and they make fun of him several times for this. And Benny, his raps about the dispatch, he does a little more singing than Usnavi, but it's kind of negligible in that way. Abuela carries songs that I don't think people talk about as much.
Yeah.
Paciencia y Fe. She is very... Paciencia y Fe is about how she was patient and she was strong, waiting for this moment. This ticket is hers. She waited her whole life for this moment, worked her whole life for this moment to hold this ticket in her hands. Inutil, amazing song about how Nina's dad is so... he wants to support her in her decision to leave Stanford, but at the same time, he doesn't feel like it's right because he knows his daughter is destined for great things, and he thinks Stanford is the door that will open for her, that whole world waiting on the other side of the Heights. So, the character work in the Heights, it's chef's kiss.
Exquisite. Yeah, absolutely.
Truly.
And it's so relatable.
Relatable.
Outside of the Latinx community, you just have collegiate students that could just absolutely relate. You have parents who can relate to these parents. You have people in your lives who you see as your kind of abuela, your grandma that's not blood related. You know? As someone of Mexican heritage, of this Latinx community, this show just resonates with me because I come from very matriarchal families, and the passing down of stories and generational information is so huge in my families. So I know it resonates for me and will resonate with anyone who has just a love for family and the passing down of stories. So this is such an amazing show. High energy, just rhythmically, just awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
And especially in a town that centers around a university that puts so many resources and so much attention into first-time family collegial attendees. The programs at Texas Tech that focus on that, being a Latinx serving institution, this is the perfect show for our community right now. For any community right now, but specifically ours.
Yeah.
I think it's
so
timely.
with that, if you are a member of the Latinx community, this show is for you. Now, and that's not to say it's not for other people as well, because there is an ensemble in this show that is open. It's not specified that you have to be Latinx to be a part of this amazing ensemble that kind of surrounds this main cast of characters. But for a lot of these characters that we mentioned, Usnavi, Nina, Kevin, Benny, Abuela, all these people, it specifically states, Latinx. Benny, African American.
Yes.
Because he's the non Spanish speaking person
Jackson.
in Chris Jackson. Amazing. So that is going to about wrap it up. Are there any last things that you want to say to the people out there so that they can be thinking about preparing an audition for one of these 3 shows for our summer?
Absolutely. I have 3 cardinal rules of auditioning that'll just break down the whole process, which can feel very complex, and sometimes it is. Just make it very simple. Number 1, prepare ahead of time. Don't wing it. We've all gone in and thought, don't do that. Don't just do anything. If nothing else, auditioning makes us very nervous.
Sure.
And when you're nervous, you need to be very specific about your intentions, because suddenly your mind and your body and your emotions will start doing things that not even you expected. So walk in with a plan. Plan your outfit. Plan what time you're going to arrive. Plan what you're going to say to the people at the desk when you get there. I know that sounds stupid, but walking in and going, hey, hi, hello, good evening, it's morning, good morning. I am Christine, I'm not, my name's Casey, and I'm excited to plan what you're going to say.
I think I've heard all of those things, like in real life.
Excited and scared, like it's me at my first auditions, excited and scared, making a mess. Walk in with a plan. So another thing, people tend to bring their music in like this, but you're going to want to bring it in a binder. It needs to be hole punched, and it needs to be clearly marked. Your pianist needs to know where you want to stop and start, and even if you tell them in the audition, they have a lot to think about too. So it's very important to bring in clearly marked music.
Absolutely.
When you're choosing your music, choose something that reminds you of the show. You can go right to the composer, something else they've written, especially with Rodgers and Hammerstein. That will be simple to do. Yeah. You know it will be in keeping with the style, and it will give a flavor of what you're trying to sell. Another thing to remember is that the people behind the table want to see you succeed.
Yes.
It's in their best interests that you do because they need people. It's in your best interest if you do because you'll feel good about it and you won't be embarrassed and you'll
100%.
know you have a purpose. And there's nothing worse than watching a bad audition, so why would they want to see you fail? They want to see you succeed. And knowing that, that was my mom's cardinal advice when I started this business, knowing that is extremely comforting. Yeah. Last rule, don't be afraid to move. People get into the audition and they stand very still. I'm not really sure why we all decided to do that tacitly without consulting each other, but we all did. Don't do that. Go ahead and move. Be a person. Like we said earlier, acting is a reflection of real life. We're getting to watch ourselves play out on stage. It's a great gift, but only if it really looks like our life. Move a little bit. Yeah. Get into the character. I'm never like, they overdid it. Gross. I don't feel like that in auditions. I'm like, look at all they gave. Look at this gift they gave. What a great gift. Mm-hmm. So be yourself, have a good time, and don't worry. Everybody wants to see you succeed.
Well, Casey, thank you so much for those amazing tips. Now, Casey has written an entire primer on preparing for the musical theater audition, which she has graciously allowed us to post on our website. So you can go to www.moonlightmusicals.com and find that primer. If you have any questions about it, she goes into much great depth on every little aspect of preparing for the musical theater audition. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today to talk about these amazing shows and what people can come to expect when auditioning for Moonlight Musicals and what they can expect for this summer season. So Casey, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank.